So welcome to the first closing gathering call for the Now What, this edition of Now What, from March 23rd through April 30th. And we're going to be doing 4 rounds in circle, in ceremony, following the spiral of the work that reconnects, which begins with gratitude. And I want to invite people, you can, to express however you wish your gratitude in this moment. But there is a particular form that I want to invite as well, which is to name some specific thing that someone else said or did that touched you or moved you or had value for you, and to thank them for that. And it doesn't have to be someone on this call, but then the more specific, the better. So that's one way to do it, or any other way that you wish. And with that, I think we have our circle order, and we will move into that.
Okay, so I want to thank you, Ben, for this amazing experience. It was great to meet you through Luis Gallardo and the World Happiness Festival. And Helen, oh my, I just so appreciate you and your wisdom, and I hope we can continue. And I appreciate that you went to my website and watched the video and shared it. Thank you for doing that. It just touched my heart when you said that to me. And Thomas, we had an early on conversation in a group, and I was trying to keep things very neutral. And so I'm assuming that you read my profile and you validated my faith, and that prayer was a good thing. And I appreciated that we connected on that level. And Shulamith, I really appreciate with the Earth Day preparations. There was some tension in one of our meetings, and we went into a room and you practiced very therapeutically the empathetic listening, and it was a powerful time together.
The one that stands out, I don't know her name. It was the other day in the gathering. We know what is it called again? A more beautiful world than our heart knows it's possible. At the group there, which has been holding an evolving space based on the inspiration of the book of Charles Eisenstein, called by that same name. The presence of people there, the way I wished I had more opportunities, but to be part of that. But the one person, I think it was a young woman, can't remember her name, she said, "I am new now." And that so moved me because it was real. It was about the lockdown, and it was about just this community which is emerging, where we with each other witness each other in our process as we are evolving. So I want to thank you, Alexia, for reminding me of the session back then. And it's that listening and being witnessed. And so I want to, through this one little example, offer gratitude to everyone here present and present in spirit for evolving together, and for, I haven't got a word for that, the wizardry, I call it now, just to be a bit Beltainish, the wizardry of Ben dancing the dance with the antlers. And so that's a story of its own, but it's a little bit very much symbolic. What's happening, that it's ending on Beltane Eve, and it started around this Easter time. And my picture, I want to say, is symbolic as well, because it's the sunrise moment, and the sonic spring had inspired that to get me to get up in the morning and photographed the rising sun over Glasgow, over the cemetery. So it's letting go of the old and the new is rising. So I thank you all.
I come to think of one, probably a cafeteria session, when Michelle asked something of me. I was on my way out. He was in the lobby with Francois, and he asked something of me, and I was invigorated from this attention and care that I felt from him in that moment when I was low, and I left feeling energized. Thank you.
Yeah, when you said you have to try to pick one thing, I went, uh-oh, because I've just been filled with so much gratitude this whole time. Every time I come on now, I have this experience where I'm constantly feeling grateful for the people who are showing up. So I guess the one thing that does come to mind is when Mark brought the indigenous people, the first call, and there was one gentleman who'd moved back to his tribal land with his wife and his children. They're trying to start an eco village there, and I was so moved by his passion and his love and his energy and willingness to put together what mattered so much to him, whatever hardships it would create for his life. So I guess that's one of many times and people that really inspired me to do what matters to me, even though it might be challenging and difficult. I'm complete.
Well, I think I openly have to be recorded because I openly would like to share my gratitude to you, Ben. It's what I really appreciate most is that we are like a small extended family that we've been over time. So we know each other's faces and the way we are. And what has been so fascinating this time is really the manifestation of the sonic spring and the energy we kind of dived into like a small group. Many moments of special epiphany of deeper learnings personally, and to see all these networks and people from this conversation and from another conversation bringing forward wisdoms. And the program is so full and so dense and so mysterious in a labyrinthic way. There's also like a and it's not enough time for me to really be part of all the things that I like to take part in and be part of. It's just too overwhelming because I do have a local life here as well. So I would just say thank you to everyone, and for being in this transformational process with me as well, because I feel that the coronavirus was a little bit starting from a darker point of view, and then it was a transformational. I think we are more lighthearted, all of us. That's what I'm feeling the most. It's a really like a bigger, grander family of togetherness. Yeah, a new ecosystem of of togetherness, of beyond countries and nations and continents. So I'm not able to express all my gratitude fully, but this is good enough for now, I will say. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you.
So I want to name a sequence that happened during Sonic Spring that began with the grief altar hosted by Shulamith and Joy. That really took me into such a deep place with a small group, very intimate and powerful. And then I moved out of that into the Sonic Spring World Cafe, where we were more playful, but some of that grief energy also carried through in this theme around Midway Island and Chris Jordan, the artist who worked there, and some of his other work as well that shows man's impact on the planet in very graphic and profound ways. And that made it into, was named in the grief altar by Joy, and then picked up again with some support from Liza as well, who knows Chris Jordan and his work, in the Sonic Spring Cafe, the World Cafe. And then out of that came this 14.5-minute long offering of sound and video that to me is just one of my favorite things that happened. Rick was a part of that too, very prominently and deliciously, and many other people playing along, and that's up on the playlist to be enjoyed or taken in. It's not all pleasant, but mostly it's pretty fun and silly. Yeah.
On this last day, I'm celebrating a personal healing. I really had lost so much of my elder women friends in one way or another, and I had despaired of finding others ever, maybe, and yet I was open to a world of people I'm just delighted to have in my consciousness all the time. I feel revived. But even more powerful than that, I had a chronic condition of living in Texas while my son Ben lives in Connecticut. And I was never satisfied that I saw enough of him and that he came to see me in particular physically enough. And I almost was jealous of his attention on Zoom compared to what I wanted. And I got over that, and I had enough of understanding what Ben does and says in a less of a shorthand manner, and I had a chance to put him on the large screen and enjoy being with him for so many weeks, and I feel just filled with delight. I went from being proud to just having a great deal of respect and gratitude to you, Ben. Thank you, and joy.
Thank you, Mom.
So to keep it short, I remember one specific moment on the first party that I went with you, Ben, with Francois, with Suzanne, and I don't remember the other woman's name. There was something that Suzanne said, I don't quite remember her words, but there was something that really triggered me and stayed with me about actually just being present and expressing who I really am in every given moment. We don't need to do anything else than just being present. That was really, wow, something. And to Ellen, I do remember once that we stayed talking after a cafe. We just went to a room and we meditated for a while, and then you say something about the one that loves to give, and that was really something that stayed. And also to Lydia, in one of the active hope groups that I went with her, and we did a little of this spiral, but we just paid our attention to honoring the pain. And it was an incredible moment that after everyone just opened themselves to bring their pains, and we didn't even know each other, but it was such a safe And then a great opportunity just to bring forward our pains. And that was really, really moving, and that stayed. And that's it. Thank you.
It's hard to keep it to one or two. There's so much to be grateful for. And even as everyone's speaking, I'm feeling even more gratitude. I want to start with just saying, Rick, I appreciated what you brought into the circle, and that I remembered that we had a really nice connection, or I felt really glad to speak to you in a fall session. And it was nice to see you again. And I love that we keep reconnecting with people, and we never know who's going to come into the squares. This session, I really want to say a huge thank you to you, not only for allowing or giving us the opportunity to be together from so many different places, but personally, I had 2 events planned for my academic work class with my students and public talk. And Ben, you're just so flexible and so gracious and so able to bring in so many different ways of sharing. So thank you for hosting my student work, and thank you for hosting my students' work, and also for hosting the Mark Jackard talk regarding his book. And I'll just finish with one last thing. I haven't been able to participate in too many of the sessions this time, but earlier this week I was on a call Beyond Education, and there was a woman named Gwen who came on, and there was just a small group of us. It was a wonderful time together, and I so appreciated the work that she and one other person is doing to support the Kofan people in Colombia. And she's so heartfelt and steady and calm, and understands the step-by-step way to go about integrating change. And I just really, really commend her on her work. Thank you.
It seems that I missed an important part that I wasn't able to participate in, important part, because I'm hearing so much from it, where although there's so many important parts, but the Sonic and the Sonic Gardens, I think it was called, I wasn't able to participate, and that seemed to be like a highlight that I missed. And I've been sort of in and out of various sessions, and that's what I really appreciated and I'm grateful for, this opportunity to be able to go in different places and with different groups of people I've never met and so on. Specifically, I'd like to appreciate, I can't remember the group's name, but there was a group that was had various indigenous people in it. I think Mark, the main name Mark was mentioned. I think that's his. Basically, because I've spent many years, my lifetime, studying culture, different cultures, but not studying cultures from books, but studying culture from being and living in those different cultures. But indigenous people is something I have studied a little bit in books, but I've never had the opportunity of actually talking and being with somebody, being where I am geographically. And that opportunity was just fantastic, just able to hear it directly. So that's probably the highlight, or one of the highlights of my experience, for which I'm really grateful that this was made possible. And the whole ambiance and the whole sort of setup was just brilliant. So my gratitude also goes to Ben, of course, for setting it up and creating it in the first place. And I also love the cafes where you could just pop in and pop out, as you can with everything else here, but that one in particular. So I really love that. So thank you, and thank you to Ben in particular, and thank you to all of you here, but also all the people who are not here.
Well, I guess I want to thank the process. I'll get to the people in a minute, but I think what we have created here was a huge education for me about what's possible, not only on Zoom, but in terms of kind of a heartful engagement that we can have, that COVID has given us the opportunity to realize in ways that we might not have otherwise. But I mean, I have to start with, I'll start with Helen, only because I met Helen before I met Ben. So temporally, thank you, Helen and Ben, and thank you for that little, that's not little is not the right adjective, that rather wonderful attribution to your to your son and the relationship that allowed the two of you. I mean, look, what more intimate thing you do? I was actually thinking about bringing my wife into the space because, but you know, mother, son, husband, wife, whatever. It was great. Then, you know, this is my first time. I think the skills that you demonstrate, being ever present, it seemed. I think I made a joke about how many clones do you have at one point. But also, whenever you're there, you're yes, I know you were on 2 lines at occasions. That was remarkable. So thank you, not just for your technical prowess, but for your ability to make technology human, which is, boy, is that going to be an important skill going forward. Lots of other people. Francois, you and I had several conversations in cafes, and I really enjoyed that, and talking about London and other things.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
For some reason, Alexa heard her voice in that conversation, so she joined in. Rick, you're one I would just highlight as someone that I wanted to get to know better, and you know, there are lots of those occurrences. Thomas, too, you're a kind of silent type. And there are many others, so I don't want to be exclusive. But you know, there are people you make connections with, and there are people that you almost made connections with, and there are people that you kind of knew you wanted to make another connection with, even if you didn't have time. I also have to thank 2 people that aren't on the call, because the core of my activity was Rachel Weaver and Nancy. And so we did the engagement stream around educating kids about trees and climate change. And we had several kids with us on Mondays and Thursdays at 2. And we had people watching us from Spain, and our focus was intergenerational, as you can tell. And that conversation is going to go forward with some other people that Ben's going to take forward next week. And then I'm going to take some of this into another space, which I don't want to make, you know, comments about size, but the Presencing Institute that came out of MIT has a month-long process that culminates in a huge conference. So the last time I was on Zoom with them, they had 4, I don't know what you call it, houses, because you know, you have to divide it once you get to 250. So there were 1,000 people on one of their Zoom calls, divided up in different ways. So the idea that Ben has taught me skills that I can take into other spaces and magnify the effect of what is so evident here in this space with you all. So I think that was a little on the long-winded side, and probably more intellectual, but I am a neurologist and a cognitive scientist. But anyway, you know, let me do this part with my heart. Got to get on the right side here. I think my screen is reversed. So thank you all, everybody.
No great secrets being revealed. I'm on a beach, and it's lovely to share the beach with those of you who haven't had a chance to be outdoors. It's too much beauty to enjoy alone. There are some easy gratitudes for me. And one is actually Rick, who I believe is in the room. The fun I had being asked to join in a spontaneous storytelling adventure was such a trip. And it was just so lovely to have fun, to just have fun for the sake of having fun. So I want to say thank you to Rick for that, for holding the space to invite that. Sonic Spring, of course, for me was a tremendous opening. You know, I got to work and meet and work with some utterly wonderful women, different backgrounds, but a shared love of sound and of meeting each other. So, and that extending across to David, who kind of mandolaed across the circle with his sound garden so that there could be this synthesis of experimental, exploratory sound developing and recording and sharing, and that carries on. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm also grateful for Helen showing up with her smiley face, singing the praises of Ben. That's very a sweet experience to witness your pride, Helen, and how much you enjoy your son. It's a lovely thing to witness. So thank you for sharing that love with us. Ben, as so many people no doubt must have said, your generosity of spirit and of technology and time and patience and humor to hold the space, create the space, and invite all of us to come in all our weird and wonderful different shapes and ways of being, and the different things we bring to the feast, to be able to share that. It's kind of like this huge picnic, and I love it. I love it. And I have to say thank you. And I'm going to turn my camera around because there's a seal that's come to say hello. You might not see him at this distance, but it's just this little periscope head. So, and of course he's going to disappear now that I've put the thing on him, but I'll keep looking at him, and then we might get to see him again if he comes in my direction. But anyway, he says hello too, and he loved it as well. So I think that's it for now. Thank you.
We're moving now into the second part of the spiral of the work that reconnects with honoring our pain for the world, which seems particularly important given that we're in this time of the COVID pandemic. And we'll open the circle to whoever wants to begin.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not unique to me. The sadness of not having been available enough for quite a few of the sessions. And through that, having missed seeing more of so many people I know from previous sessions and being live with them in the enlivening Zoom rooms, as they were created as safe and yes, as sacred, deeply transformational spaces. And here my eyes go particularly to you, Rick, because it was such fun when I dropped in one of your first sessions of the Great Brightening. I just love that word, and I never told you why. And as a wild card, the Great Brightening, it's been a theme of a song that came to me at a Scottish loch. And you sitting in front of that water, you just look like sitting in front of that loch. It's called Loch Marie. So the Great Brightening was whispering there into the gray silver of the land, the water, and the pebbles. Yeah, so that is my sadness. I just relating it to the Now What session. That's where I sort of on a greater scale, where I am just now. No, I'm just here in this now. I'm in the group. And that's at the moment, yeah. I wish I would have been able to be there more. And yeah, I'm here now, and through everyone, I feel I'm here with everyone who's also not there. Thank you.
Boy, I'm overcome with emotion suddenly. I've been really impacted, a lot of sadness about how during the coronavirus so much fear has happened. You know, if I occasionally happen to catch a newscast or something on Google, it's just all about fear, 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 and danger, 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 and future danger. And then I come to now what, and hear all these people talking about a completely different kind of future, of connection and safety, not of distancing and fear. And that juxtaposition of those two experiences has brought up a lot of sadness for me. I want everybody out there who's feeling so frightened, I want them to be on Now What, so they can have the kind of experience I'm having that are creating a lot of hope. And so, yeah, I guess that's just the main feeling, is that sadness between those two types of experiences. And I'm complete.
I recognize the words of Sulamit and Thomas and Suzanne. Sulamit saying, expressing their deep connection or longing to be part of more conversations and so many things going on, and you know, you wanted to be able to dive deeper. And as Thomas is expressing that there is a longing to express more joy and to benefit even louder in a participatory, joyful moment, to give more. So, and also there's another element also, after I'm listening to Suzanne, it comes up to me that it's also, there is a longing to express, to invite others to be part of Now What, and to it's like sneaking out to have like a date with a group of people that you don't telling your closest family and closest friends that I'm having this randomly coffee talks and following all these deep conversations and late in night, early in the morning. It's like a secret, playful garden, if we use that metaphor, of learning and joy and creativity. And so to be able to be even more fully human in this time of crisis, to stretch out to others, because there is a deep transformation and a deep tolerance and generosity and beingness that we are training ourselves to be in the journey of the weeks of Now What. So it's building resilience on an inner alchemy, maybe, of trusting a global conversation that is beyond my local self. And even in this early morning sunny spring, it's, well, I'm starting to talk about joy, but it feels joyful to know that I'm part of a small walk, and I knowing that others are concerned about the same sunrise or the sunset on the other side of the planet. And that's just amazing. And yeah. Yes, I'm done. I think I feel transforming the alchemy of sadness into more love. Thank you.
the part of the context for Now What is to be in support of people who've held the vision of what Joanna Macy and others have called the Great Turning, or Charles Eisenstein's phrase, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And part of that story, that new story, is reclaiming our sense of being deeply interconnected with not just one another, but with all of nature and Mother Earth and the very fabric of the cosmos. And I have this terrible fear, this sadness over the notion that our response to this virus is to feed the story of disconnection and of othering from nature, that nature has these bad elements in it and we must kill them and keep ourselves separate from them. And the truth is the viruses and us are all part of one superorganism. We've co-evolved with all of that. These things have happened throughout our time on this planet and before we were here. And the steps that we might take to prioritize the safety of all of us as humans over everything else that we might want as humans, let alone what the more than human world might need, to me is while I understand the importance and the necessity in this moment, is also to me so dangerous. And so I hold a lot of grief over the damage that may be done in terms of our moving towards that deep sense of interconnection and of embracing nature, of not being afraid to kiss the ground and lie on it and let alone hug another person or just shake their hand. And I just am aware of how much, the immense amount of privilege that I have to be able to show up in a space like this, to not have my life be disrupted very much at all, to experience the joy and the play that we've had, and know that for so many people that is not the case now, may never be, and that there are things unfolding that are taking us away from that more beautiful world, even as many things are also potentially moving us towards it.
I want to honor the deaths of 3 very close friends: Joanne, who died to the coronavirus; Liz, lifelong friends, both of them; and Now What introduced me to the importance of knowing someone in my neighborhood, and my one successful neighbor, wonderful neighbor Vicky, who also died. And then I wanted to name of my elder friends who I have, the things that are keeping me from being able to connect. First, their illness. Second, dementia. Third, that they moved to retirement communities that swallowed them up, all their time and attention. And fourth, some who have their wits but are so busy that I can't compete with their schedules. So those are the losses that I am thinking about right now. Thank you.
I think at the moment there's a part of me that is a mix of a shock and a horror towards what the system, the business as usual, is forcing us to do, fear-based, completely fear-based, and sometimes is overwhelming to see how it limits us. On the other hand, there's also this sadness for the people that actually are completely afraid and are going with this narrative. And they lock themselves, not even at homes, but within themselves, their own fears. And that's really sad. There's also a grief, actually, for nature, for what humans has done to nature. And at the same time, the grief for the old that really must be released, and the doubt that we all have towards that this is the way, that being connected, have hope, being uniting consciousness in love, that's the way. And at the same time, bearing the insecurity of not knowing what will happen, not knowing just that. So I think it's a mixture of all of this.
So relative to the pain that some people are suffering, I've been very fortunate not having much pain, and which is negligible, because what I do want to acknowledge is the pain that some people are really suffering, and it's pain that's being driven by the fear that I think Suzanne mentioned. So it's self-inflicted pain, but it's pain nevertheless. But it's also the pain that's from the suffering that's from the lack of resources, lack of jobs are disappearing, or in some parts of the world it's even worse, where there's absolutely nothing. So I feel incredibly fortunate to be in a position where I am, and it's just want to add to that. I mean, some of it is really inflicted by our own world. The way I look at it is some of it is the old British colonial divide and control mechanism, which is at work. And so I feel very embarrassed to be actually to be British in that sense. But what is really what we have shown, and this is what I'd like to highlight, what we have shown is what we hear now, what, as well as other groups, so we're not the only group, but many groups who've been sort of having these kind of conversations have shown actually that despite these mechanisms, despite this fragmented data, we are able to reconnect using different means. In this case, we're using Zoom, or we're using sort of the internet in different ways. So we are able to create and recreate new communities and so on. And so that gives me a lot of hope, and shows that it is possible going into the future, that it is possible that there is a pathway to a better way forward, and there's light ahead of the tunnel. That's all I wanted to say.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I live with a feeling of grief. I'm so aware of the interconnections, the relationships, the family that this planet is. And she relies on us and depends on us to an extent to see her as whole and complete. And I feel such a pain when I recognize those eyes and those hearts who don't see that miss the beauty, miss the aliveness, and I think miss the aliveness of themselves at the same time. I think if you feel fully alive, you are fully alive because the planet is living through you, and you see that and you know it. So my prayer for humanity is to recognize their grief in the absence of the wholeness, in the absence of seeing the wholeness, and therefore naturally choosing right action and right relationship.
respect and reverence for life. And I live with that. That's all. Thank you.